All right, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to our panel on everything you wanted to know from a pen tester. So all the questions that you guys had, we're going to answer them. We're going to tell a lot of funny stories today. We're going to have a good time. We did put out on our Source Zero Twitter some questions. So we've got some questions from everybody. So thank you, everybody that submitted questions. And you guys will all be entered in for a giveaway. So keep watching the Source Zero Twitter for that. We'll announce who wins there. And we'll just get started. So I'm going to start. My name is Tim Elrod. I just want to introduce myself. I've been in information security for over 20 years now, mainly focusing in offensive security, kind of breaking things like that. So I will be the moderator and host for this panel. We'll kind of just go around and let our panelists introduce themselves. We'll start with Savannah.
Hi, everyone. My name is Savannah Lazera. I'm one of the tech managers on the Attacking Pen team. My expertise is social engineering, so it's my favorite kind of thing to do. And then I also am on our adversary simulation team. I'll go ahead and pass it over to Birch.
Yeah, I am Matt Birch. I am also a technical manager on our attack and penetration team. My area of specialty is breaking kiosks and ATMs and medical distribution devices and trying not to get arrested at airports. I'll go ahead and pass it over to Ari.
Hey everyone, I'm Bakhti-Suroosh. Everyone's always welcome to call me Ari. I'm a security consultant too at Optiv, and my specialty, just because I've just delivered on so many of them, is the physical facility pen tests. I do enjoy them. I'm guilty of that. And it's become a specialization of mine because I did it so often over COVID, especially. I'll pass it over to Heidelberg.
Thank you. My name is Matthew Heidelberg. I'm an engineering fellow here at Optiv. I run our adversary simulation services, and my specialty is red teaming and purple teaming.
All right. So we're going to start off. We do have some serious questions, some things people wanted to know, but we're also here. We're going to have a good time. So we're going to start with some kind of lighthearted stuff. So I want to ask all of you guys, what is the craziest, most insane thing you've seen on a test? Whether it be funny, whether it be something ridiculous that happened, or whether it be the most ridiculous bug you've seen. What is the most insane thing you've seen on a test? We'll go ahead and start with, we'll pass that one over to Birch first.
Oh, man. So I get the opportunity to look at a lot of different devices. So, I work with IoT and product type stuff. I think probably one of the craziest assessments or things that I had seen is there was an organization that had a medical device that was used to distribute controlled narcotics to people. And they had come up with the idea that the device could be deployed to multiple different locations. And I was able, during the course of the assessment, identify that every user account that was added to every device was replicated to every device, and incidentally also contained credentials to get into the VPN portal at the managing organization. So although that you may have devices deployed everywhere, it's important to ensure that what's maintained on the device and or ensure that you're not exposing yourself to risk far outside your organization.
All right. Let's go to Ari next.
Okay. I've been kind of sitting here thinking about the answer.
Put him on the spot. I put him on the spot.
I think maybe one of the crazier things I've seen is one client in particular had a really robust perimeter around their physical building, their headquarters. I mean, it was the barbed wire, single way in, single way out. The security booth was really serious, and I think the only thing that's really coming to mind right now is the fact that I just had to slip on an Amazon Prime vest and drive up to the intercom and just let them know that I had a package. They opened that up, and then once I got in the parking lot, in order to get into the main building, it was post-COVID, so it was difficult to see anyone coming in and out. So finally, I ended up just kind of swapping over to look like a trucker, and I stood there in front of the door, and somebody eventually came up and just kind of let me in, and then I just was able to get in that way. So I think that's probably the only thing that really comes to mind right now.
I really want to see what looks like a trucker means. I need to see pictures of what.
Yeah,
what
I know.
looks
It's not.
like a
It might
trucker
not be what
means.
you think.
I have to see pictures
It's a
of
very
that.
modern day interpretation.
I think we should just pause right now. You have the outfit probably in the closet behind you. Come on.
Like
You're not wrong about that.
is it like the guy from Bandit, like Snowman from the Bandit? That's what I'm picturing. All right, while he's doing that, we'll go ahead and go to Matt Eidelberg. Matt, tell me something just insane, buddy.
Okay, so this was on a red team engagement. Very, mature clients, from all our OSINT, they had everything, they were very financially invested in security. Finally, we do get in.
That is a trucker. Or Shia LaBeouf. I can't.
I mean, isn't that the same look these days?
It is. It is very much.
It is. Yep.
So we finally get in. We fish someone in marketing. Let's just say she's Sally from accounting. Actually, let's go with Sally from accounting for this story. I just don't want to give any specifics out. But what we kind of see, and this is just sheer dumb luck, is that this user is brand new, hasn't even gone through the awareness training, and they've repurposed this machine. So as we're going through, we find other users' accounts, folders, and artifacts. One of them was an IT person. Now, from all our information, they had local, all the laps and everything you can imagine, CyberArk. But there was this guy's file on his documents desktops area that was basically an instruction guide to all his secondary applications, and one of them was this management studio. And this management studio was pretty much a backdoor into every system on the network. It was designed so that way you could go in and you could push updates. So rather than doing anything with GPOs, I forget the company that kind of produced it, but it was their solution to be like the user-friendly version of GPOs. So you could push anything, you could run stuff, you could pull information down. So who's logged in, how much CPU usage, uninstall this application. You could also push scripts. And if you did not kind of specify a user, it would run the script as NT system. So what we did was we were able to query this dashboard, get the list of all the domain administrators, and push our payload to run via a script. And it ran as NT system, came back. We were able to dump all those users' credentials. And then the funny part was we couldn't access anything that was part of their financial or their mission critical stuff because it was all segregated, except for this agent. So this agent ended up acting as their own C2 device, and it was single factor, and they had left this terminated employee's access open.
That's insane.
That's awesome.
All right, Savannah.
All right, I had some time to think. So I would say the craziest kind of thing I've ran into is I was on a physical assessment, and they had 5 layers of security to get in. It was a very locked down facility. I was I don't know how I'm going to get in. And so I impersonated VP's daughter, got all the way in to the point to where I convinced everybody that everybody that was there was 100% was that's his daughter. It was let's take her to lunch. Do whatever you want in the office. Whatever you need. And they were willing to just, they could have just, looked somebody up on Facebook to see what their daughter, how old they were. They're probably 10 years younger than me at that time. This was 4 years ago. But yeah, just having that full access to such a secure facility, I would say, is probably the craziest.
That's nuts. That is insane. So I'll tell you guys mine. This is a little bit different definition of ridiculous. So I think the statute of limitations have run out on this. So it was one of the very first engagements I ever did as a professional tester. We were doing a physical security kind of assessment of a building. We managed to get in at night by triggering some the sensors on the doors, the whole under the door balloon trick. Got in, and we're trying to get to this company's server room, and we noticed they have drop down ceiling. So me wanting to be, impress people as I started and go the extra mile, climbed up in a drop down ceiling. Now I am not a small man, and I got about 30 feet in a drop down ceiling, and it's like something off a cartoon. I heard a crack, and I kind of stopped, and the next thing I know, I was falling and slamming on a conference room table. And so, I mean, this is not during the day. This is at 10 o'clock at night in this organization. And so we then proceeded to pick the lock on a maintenance closet, found where they kept the extra ceiling tiles, bend the frame back into place, and replace the ceiling tiles so that nobody would know in the morning. So that is my insane, ridiculous thing that happened on a test. That was one of
Did you guys vacuum after from like?
Yes. We turned into janitors, literally, like not just posing as them, literally turned into janitors to clean up because we came through a ceiling, which was fantastic. All right. So let's go to our first Twitter question that we had come in. This is from Codename Judite. Always wondered, how do pen testers define the time that will take to perform a pen test? So what goes into how long we say we're going to do a penetration test? Let's go ahead and pass this over to Birch.
Oh man, I'm really getting picked on. All right. Well, I think one of the big things that kind of go into that, right, is it's sort of based off experience a little bit. So at the general sense, you have an idea on, how long your commands and the process is going to take to look and identify the environment. Going through the discovery, profiling, if you do like some research for vulnerabilities, that's all usually pretty fast. And there's a good estimate on how much time that's going to take. I think where a lot of the challenge comes, and probably the focus of the question, is defining the time that you're going to spend manually reviewing items, because that's where you sink the majority of the time. Sometimes on gigs, I look down at my computer and then I look up and I've been looking at something for 4 hours, and I think that's actually really hard to define a time around, because you never know what you're going to run into. You never know what you're going to see. And I think you just have to average it out, right? And then try to identify the stuff that's going to bring the most impact and shed light on the core deficiencies against the customer or the environment that you're looking at. So it's kind of a balance. It's like a really tough question to define.
Yeah, I mean, I think it does come a lot with experience, right? You try to kind of come up with a happy medium when you're trying to scope out an engagement, with the understanding that there are going to be times that you spend a little bit more time on an engagement than what you scoped, and there are times you're going to spend, maybe finish a little bit early on an engagement, but it all tends to kind of work out. It's always a guessing game. It's always trying to make the best effort. And then ultimately, as pen testers, whether it be from Optiv or any organization, our goal is to deliver the best quality pen test that we can for a client, right? So ultimately, you have a job to do, you have a target to go after, and you're going to do everything you can to get that.
Yeah, I mean, just to add a little bit more to that, right? It's not like you're always going to find an O-Day on some product that's there. So usually, you can spend a little bit less time on that, unless it's an MDM or something like that, then maybe you just pull an O-Day out of your back pocket.
Yeah, have one sitting around. All right. So to kind of go along with this, I'm curious if you guys had one piece of advice that you could give somebody that wanted to get into testing, that wanted to get into adversarial simulation, that wanted to get into offensive security, which is all kind of where we live. What would your one piece of advice kind of be? Let's start with Savannah.
I would say, I'm a very big advocate for someone building out their own Active Directory lab, because I feel like that's really lacks in a lot of training. most people try to kind of skip over it, and until you can understand how an Active Directory lab is kind of built out and how it actually works, then it will be really hard for you to have an understanding of any client's internal environment, because I would say 90% are going to be in an Active Directory environment, if not more. So I would say that's the biggest thing that if you want to get into offensive security, to try to dive into first, to build like those foundational skills.
Absolutely. Ari, what about you, buddy?
Well, definitely agree with Savannah on hers. So just count that as being part of of my advice. But
What she said?
you can, you could definitely take that, and then I'll add that I think there's a lot to be said for trying to take advantage of as many free resources as possible at first, because there's so many great resources for kind of dialing it up. As far as so if we're talking about someone starting from scratch, just nothing. You have Over the Wire to teach you about the basics of Linux and maneuvering around a terminal, and then you have Hack the Box, which has the free tier. I mean, there's so many free resources before you really need to start paying for some of the certifications and that sort of thing. So I think that those are really great resources to kind of go after to really kind of build up your skill and build up the most important skill that any of us have, which is the ability to just research and kind of self-teach self-teach ourselves. On the spot. I'm going to go try to self-teach myself English after this.
There you go. You painted yourself in a corner a little bit by halfway through that.
I really did, yeah.
All right. Mr. Eidelberg, what about you, buddy?
So I'm going to go a different approach. Everything that was just said, I agree with. But I'm going to take the different approaches, passion and drive. If you don't have, especially when you're starting out, if you don't have the passion for this industry and the motivation to do it, you're going to kind of fizzle out really quickly. I think every single person here on this panel can probably say that in the start of their career, even still probably now, there's probably days, weeks where they're up late, learning, taking apart stuff, educating themselves on some kind of new topic, new product, new technology, or just digging into something for the fun of it. You have to have that drive to willing to go beyond the 9 to 5. And I hear that a lot from people who want to get in this industry, but they want it to be like a 9 to 5 check in, check out sort of thing. Hey, I have a life. I have extracurricular activities. You can definitely have that, but sometimes there's the extra time, because as technology evolves, like as we're doing this right now, there's new technology out there. There's changes to IT, and so being able to understand what's going on, what changes, and as well as the security implications is a huge thing, and being able to be driven to want to learn is a huge part of that. And notice how I didn't paint myself into a corner, Ari.
No,
you're taking notes.
Handled that masterfully.
Well done.
I had to. I'm sorry, man.
All right, Mr. Birch.
Yeah, so like Eidelberg, I also have a little bit different approach to this, and I think it kind of comes from my background, right? So unlike some of the other guys on this panel, I didn't start out in offensive security. I actually have about 10 plus years of background experience doing security administration. So installing firewalls, installing web filters, twerking policy, and looking at security events via SIM tools. And it was a big jump for me to go from the defensive mindset into offensive and actually eventually get accepted within the space from the team, from the industry, just all over in general. And what I would suggest is don't take anything at face value. Don't assume something works the way that it does just because that's what an instruction manual says, or that's what is expected for something to do. We constantly have to work through and redefine or reconfigure something to do what we want. Recently, I was, even working on an engagement, and I was trying to figure out different ways or limitations with the mount command in Linux. And you can't necessarily Google or look up, how do I make something not work? So you need to have the flexibility, the open box, out of the box thinking to be able to define and the boundaries of what's expected. So I think the creative sense, the ability to spend the time doing research, setting up your own lab, and really understanding how stuff works, and don't question things at face value.
Absolutely. We are definitely not the people that build the Lego like it says in the box. We kind of move those blocks around and do our own thing for sure. For sure. All right. Well, we're going to get into our second Twitter question here. Cyber Ballman wanted to know, when is the best time to use an automated scan? Automated scanner. Let's go with, because I know he loves them so much, and his answer is going to be great. Let's go to Mr. Eidelberg on this one.
Oh, I knew you were going to go with me first. So, anyone who's wondering a bit about that, when we run our adversarial red team stuff, we typically don't use automated scans. Now, that being said, there is a place, especially in many different types of engagements, where the focus of it is not so much focused on stealth. Automated scanners are very comprehensive, and they give you a nice 365 view of the landscape and all the known misconfigurations, vulnerabilities, but they're as quiet as a bull in a china shop. Very noisy. So where I would say that is, when the type of engagement you have in front of you, if you know it's focused primarily on stealth and evasion, probably as your last ditch effort. If you're really trying to show value and impact, you've thrown everything, including the kitchen sink, at the engagement and nothing's sticking, and you want to show impact, because at the end of the day, whether or not what you find, you want to provide value to a client. And if you hand them a clean, empty report when you still have a few tools left in your back pocket, have you done the best job or a good job? Probably not. So that's my answer, is simply depends on the type of engagement, but don't be afraid to use them because of something. Always make sure you're providing value to a client.
Okay. Let's see. Anybody else have anything they want to add to that answer? Anything?
I have a short thing to add.
Go for it.
In the beginning, so you don't waste any more time than you need to.
Wow. All right. That was
first time ever, man of few words.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. I think automated scanners have their place, right? They do. They catch some low-hanging fruit. They will give you a baseline if you don't have one. I think in what we do, they have a lot more limited place. If we weren't, needing them, use them because someone wanted that particular service or something like that, I don't know if we'd use them as much. But I think for the overall security industry, an automated scanner, definitely has its place, and they come along and they get better as time goes on. So they definitely have a place. So, back to a little bit of what we were talking about, right? The kind of, how you get in this industry or how you started. I'm curious, how many of the people on here started in IT that wasn't in offensive security, or how many started in offensive security? Savannah?
So I actually started in marketing.
Marketing, okay.
Yes, and so I did a lot of graphic design, things like that. But I always had an interest in computers, and I was always really good with computers. I just was always kind of afraid to take that leap. So then I took a class at the University of Tampa, and that's when I kind of made that leap. But I really never thought I'd ever be in this industry. If you would have asked me 8 years ago, I would have been yeah, I'm going to be an accountant.
That's awesome. I mean, that is a crazy. I don't think I've ever heard of that path. I mean, that path, right, where somebody comes from an industry. Normally you hear people grow up and they were IT guy and then they came to this or whatever. But from marketing to here, that's an incredible leap. That's awesome.
Yeah, and I would say for me, I like it so much because it's always changing. I can't do the same job every single day or for every single client, for example. And every single client is always different. There'll be scenarios where there's going to be maybe a similar type of attack, but still everything's always going to be different. So I need that constantly changing environment.
Absolutely. What about you, Ari? How did you get into this wonderful world?
So you thought Savannah was a leap from one industry to another? I have the background of a good old fashioned fraud. So my background is in bartending. I
All right.
bartended my way through bartending for like 8 years, and then finally decided to pivot and go back to school. And I had always had a proclivity towards computers. I was working in some small electronics repair shops, so I had, I liked the hardware a little bit more. But I decided to try to go back to school, for computer science, and then I slowly kind of narrowed the focus, very slowly, until finally I took a class called ethical hacking, and that was taught by Nick Popovich.
Okay.
So let everybody met the guy cheer. He's the coolest man alive, and he actually was like the kind of mentor that I needed to like really narrow my focus to a pinpoint, just a laser beam of focus to information security and like offensive security in particular. I mean, he brought our physical pen test kits to class and showed us what he did. I'm going to go break into a bank in Idaho next week. I was like, this is what I have to do for sure. And he actually was the one who gave me the email that had like the checklist of the things that I needed to do. And I just went down that checklist and knocked everything out. It took me about 2.5, 3 years to actually break into the industry once I decided that that's what I wanted to do. But that is how I did it. I was bartending.
Absolutely. Well, I know next time we all get together, who's making the drinks then?
Exactly.
All right, Mr. Eidelberg, what about you, buddy?
Not as fun, as exciting. I started off in IT. I was doing help desk work. I did graduate with a fancy degree called Informatics and Security. It was so new when I signed up, they never had any graduates, so they were just teaching whatever. At one point, we were forced to learn about history of modern Asia. I had a class about green economics and one class about sci-fi writing. So it was a wide diversity I had, but they really did not know. And I just started getting involved with security when I was on the job, because at that point, the company was getting ransomware and no one wanted to deal with it. So I was like, I'll take a look. Little did I know that it started off my career into implant development.
Awesome. And Birch, did you start out as a security admin, or did you do IT stuff before that?
Yeah, I did IT stuff. It was mostly fixing printers and things like that. I rolled into IT kind of like out of high school, because like many people, I was getting towards the end of my stretch in high school, and I didn't know what I wanted to do. And there was a teacher that taught Cisco, and I was a student teacher, and I was like, hey, I want to learn Cisco. And he's like, hey, you just spend all day in class looking at Metallica. And
prerequisite number one to learning Cisco.
Yeah. Well, you got to be a fan of Metallica. And then he enrolled me in some courses, and I studied it, and then I came up with this awesome scheme to fail graduation and then get Cisco training for free via my high school. He said, absolutely horrible idea, don't do it. I did it anyhow, and I got a job in IT with the school. The school hired me, and then I got a job with a small security contractor locally, or a little security firm, installed firewalls and stuff, and eventually made my way over to Optiv, and I wanted to get into the offensive practice because I had reached the end of the road, I think, looking at things from a defensive perspective. And there was a list of requirements I had to do. It was strenuous and a huge mental shift, and from there I've been running on the offensive side.
So let me get the school hired you after you failed to get free training. I want to make sure I heard that right. That's amazing.
Oh yeah, it was. Not only that, but I was the poster child for the program. They're like, the program's so great. Look, kids fail on purpose.
That is fantastic. All right, let's go to another Twitter question here. Mick and Yuri ask, in a red teaming engagement where being stealthy is very essential to the whole operation, I often see how one evades EDR or antivirus, but how do you escalate privileges on a system in a stealthy manner? Let's go ahead and pass this one to the lead of adversarial testing, Mr. Eidelberg. I think this is right up his alley a little bit.
So that's always a great question, especially when we're talking about privilege escalation itself. You have to realize that whatever you're trying to do, whether or not you're trying to figure out like type of startup or any type of thing you're trying to sideload into for privilege escalation, that can be very noisy. When you've established a foothold, and typically you want to do is ensure and entrench that you do not have any detection. So EDR unhooking, very common. We've talked a lot about it. The industry has, but when you start looking at stuff like that, where you're trying to interact with stuff that's services running, or you can start up as a different service, that can be very noisy because you're outside your essential system. I always like to say that looking at the endpoint itself is sometimes more risky for privilege escalation than looking at the domain ecosystem. For that being said, that could be curb roasting. Numerous times we have high success by doing curb roasting. You could do that once you've established that beacon. Proxy. There's many great tools, or living inside your beacon, or implant, whatever C2 framework moniker you want to use. Because once you've established yourself, chances are anything you do inside that process is going to go undetected. So being able to interact with a domain controller to dump curb roast tickets, the latest thing with Active Directory certified services to get certificates to pull down domain administrators' hashes. Those are great things to do. Whereas looking on your system that you've compromised can sometimes be way more risky, and you typically may not get great results or yield from all that work you put into. If you usually hit a workstation, chances are, if it's Sally from accounting, she doesn't have domain admin on her box. So you might get her privileges or a local administrator account. But in these days, there's a low chance that those credentials are going to be used on another machine. So I always say, don't worry about the box itself from a stealthy point of view and escalating privileges there. Use it as a point to go deeper in the network, because chances are you can do anything with domain controllers and stuff. But if you get other credentials, you could probably find a system that has tons of stuff, like a server, and they typically don't have as strenuous security controls in place because they're already internal. The kind of guise is that, hey, they don't go out to the internet. They don't need as much detailed security. They don't need as locked down as our frontline, workstations where people go, they log in the internet all the time. So that's my long-winded answer on that question.
Absolutely. Anybody else have any interesting methods of kind of elevating privileges in a more stealthy manner that they think is something interesting or something that might be helpful?
I can kind of add on to Matt. I would say just kind of if you are trying to test anything, to always do it in an environment, like a testing environment, before you actually do it in the real environment. I would say it's like a very big thing that we all kind of stress with each other, is always make sure you test it in in your own test environment before just throwing it in a client's environment.
Probably a good idea. I mean, when you crash their systems, that tends to let them know you're there. I would have definitely, or when you fall out of ceilings, it tends to let them know you were there too, apparently. So
to be fair, if you crash every single system on their network, there's no way for those logs to transfer up.
It's true.
They know you're there.
You just have to crash big. That's the answer.
Go big or go home.
But we do not recommend against it. We would not recommend that at all.
I think the call from Optiv Legal is coming in right now to tell me to stop talking.
So just so I understand, the recommendation is that I need to build 3 or 4 different drop ceilings in my basement with different wires, so I know the weight capacity of each.
Yes. Yes. I can tell you that that those little aluminum frame ones, are their weight capacity is less than me. I can tell you that for sure. I don't know what it is, but it's less than me.
What you need to do is, whatever company you're working for, just have them expense a full cat suit and grappling hook and all that thief gear.
Absolutely. I've always wanted a cat suit. Now maybe I'll have my chance. Do we issue those when we have a new hire? We issue cat suits. So all right. So kind of, going along, right? We all have a lot of experience. We've seen a lot of stuff. What do you think the most egregious vulnerability you've ever run across is? The most you're like, really? And I have a good one for this at the end that I'll share, but we'll mix it up here a little bit because this one's a little hard. So I'm going to go with Mr. Birch first.
Ooh, boy.
On the count of three, we all say MS-17.
Yeah, I mean, you always have stuff like that. But I'm going to flip it back to something that I've actually experienced. When I first came on the attack and pen team, right, over here at Optiv, and they gave us our laptops, working on our laptop, and I didn't have a whole lot to do, in the beginning, because I was learning the ropes, had some easy gigs, and I decided to test out my new pen testing skills on our local laptop. And I found out that the AV program that we were using set up a TCP listener on the system that you could give it calls and it would just execute actions via whatever you sent to the TCP socket. Kind of like a web shell, but so much better. And it would just execute stuff as system on the disk. So that was super awesome. That resulted in an email, and then they removed that AV program from every system in the organization.
Fantastic. All right, how about we go to Savannah? Savannah, what about you?
I feel like so you're asking kind of what vulnerability we kind of see the most.
Silly that you looked at and you went, really that?
I would say like SME null sessions. Like when I see that, I'm like, come on, that's just like on an internal environment. You're just giving us access, and without us even really having to try. That's the case because we can kind of pull the domain information and then kind of move from there. But I would say that's a vulnerability. I would say maybe like legacy protocols too, as well. Those should definitely not be there unless it's kind of like a business requirement. I would say those are the two.
All right. How about Ari? How about you, Ari?
Well, I mean, I was pretty serious about MS-17. I think that's a big one. Whenever I see that one, I'm like, wow, in this day and age, incredible.
I still remember O2s, man.
Yeah.
Oh man.
I will also bring up. There's been a few times that I've seen private keys just on the perimeter. Some misconfiguration. Always make sure to fuzz your directories because every once in a while you'll see something that comes out of nowhere that no automated scanner picked up, and you'll see some pretty wild things in those subdomains. And then of course, if I was to think about kind of the physical side of things, the facility stuff. It's always nice to see someone just have like all of the information that you'd ever need to clone a badge because their badge is right there in their picture. So that's like that's a good one. I always love that because it's like, well, great. I don't have to spend first day of recon trying to zoom in and get a picture of it. It's right there. That's perfect.
So, I always like the ones where the door hinges are mounted backwards and the pins are on the outside.
Oh man,
those are always good.
Those are always good unless they have that magnetic strip at the top. Because I found out from this past assessment that magnetic strip is enough to hold that door in place without any of the pins in there. And I know that because I did it. I couldn't believe
what you're telling me is the weight of that magnetic strip is more than me, unlike a drop-down ceiling. All right.
Those drop-down ceilings will get you all the time.
All right. All right, how about you, Mr. Heidelberg?
I'm gonna say people.
Okay.
If we look at this, weak passwords, and that's what I was just making a little joke that I think did not land. But whenever I see winter 2022, spring, password one, that's set by people. People leave things. People let people into the building for pretexting. There is a single point of failure, and they often are simple things that we've in this day and age have been talking about, preaching about. Don't click on emails that are coming from an untrusted source. Don't set your password to your dog's name and the year you graduated. Things like that you can get from Facebook. Don't put your badge on social media. They're the single point of failure that leads to so much success in this industry.
Absolutely. Now I've got two for you guys, two kind of funny stories. So the first one, we were on a test for an organization that has a nationwide television network. And we were doing a pen test. And we came across a system that had a port we had never seen open before. We kind of probed at that port a little bit. It came up on Nmap and all that stuff. We never could figure out what it did. It would never respond, but it would just show as open. Come to find out, that port, whatever you sent to it as a data packet, would go up as a lower third on a screen across their broadcast live. Luckily, it was night testing. It was like 3 o'clock in the morning, but Nmap Connect strings went out as a lower third on this nationwide television station.
I think Savannah's face says it all.
That one was pretty good. That was one of those ones where I was like, okay, I've never seen that one before. That's pretty good. If we would have understood what was going on, if we would have been watching the television at the time, we could have had a lot of fun with that. I was just a little disappointed we didn't. The other one was we were doing an assessment. We had a web application, and this web application had a vulnerability that I think everybody's probably familiar with, where you try to log in with a username. It says, invalid username or password. But if you guess the right username, it comes back. It says invalid password for, and it gives a session ID, right? So you're like, oh, I can map user IDs. That's great. So we're going through and we're doing that. And then I keep looking at this session ID, and it kind of strikes me. It looks familiar. The format looks familiar. That session ID was that user's social security number. That's what they used as a unique identifier. So it would just, here it is. Here's the social security number. So that one was another one that was, I kind of looked at, really, guys? Really?
So
I see where you got, like where you were going and how you got there, but come on, man.
So that kind of reminds me of one web app I did test where it has a username and password field. And if you, as you're fuzzing those fields, if you typed in like a password, it would to change like a user's account, it would actually say, sorry, another user already has that password.
Wow.
Yeah. So we could enumerate
the password list.
Yeah. So it was really like you have to now reverse. Like typically when you have a bunch of names, you have to figure out one password. No, in this case, we just had to figure out afterwards what users and align them together.
Wow. That is a little different. That is a little different. You're like, no, nobody's gonna have the same password ever.
That one poor web app developer thought it was a really smart idea.
Let's head back to the wonderful world of Twitter with Not the Elite Hacksaw. How should a pen tester handle scope creep? Pretty sure this happens in real world quite often, especially for companies having their first time pen testing. I would say yes. This does happen in the real world all the time. So let's talk about scope creep a little bit and how you guys handle that kind of on engagements you're on. Let's start with you, Savannah.
Just read scope creep. So I'm handling scope creep. Probably off guard. I would say depending on if it's like 5 hosts, where it's not going to be super crazy, usually kind of let that slide. But if it's going to be like 100,000 hosts, I would say then you definitely kind of gotta go back to the client and say, hey, like we need more time for this engagement if this is the scope that you kind of want evaluated, and kind of making sure that that is handled in the initial scoping process as well to prevent that from happening, like from something being booked and then you come back and then it has to be changed. So I would say having the initial scoping done properly is what really helps there.
Absolutely. That is definitely what I would say is make sure those guardrails are up and you scope and you're very clear on your scope. That is definitely something that will help on that. So for our last Twitter question, and this is going to kind of close us out for today. So the Furious Ostrich, which kudos to the amazing Twitter handle, everybody that I've had to read. I appreciate the Twitter handles. Does a pen tester stop trying to brute force against an authentication mechanism if their custom word list fails? So say you made a custom word list, it fails, it didn't get any accounts, you stop. And if there's no other way to get in, what do you do? What do you do on an engagement where you couldn't get in? What do you do? What kind of conversations do you have? Do you stop and kind of inform your client? Do you try to keep going and find other stuff? What do you do when that first thing you tried doesn't work? Because that often happens. Let's go to you, Ari.
Okay, so we're just gonna breeze by like the custom word list part. We're gonna focus more on like after you've tried everything.
After you've tried everything, let's because I think it goes both ways, right? Like when something doesn't work, I think the heart of this question is when something doesn't work, what do you do, right?
Okay, yeah, that's fair. That's a very fair question, and especially I identify with kind of feeling uneasy about it because in the beginning you feel like you're going to get in every time, you're going to get DA or you're going to get past the perimeter. If I am really spinning wheels and I feel like I've tried every tool, every method, a lot of the time I will call someone that I trust over for a quick sanity check and just be like, hey, I'm getting nowhere with this. What are you kind of thinking? And just to get a second pair of eyes on it, because if you've ever taken the OSCP or if you've ever kind of gotten lost in a CTF, you know that you tend to go down rabbit holes and you tend to get a little tunnel vision from time to time. It's useful to have a second pair of eyes pop in, look at it, and do a quick, what we all call kind of a sanity check. Just look at this. Have I missed anything? Have I tried anything? I have Savannah do it with me all the time. She pops on. She says, have you tried this? I'm like, yep. And we kind of go down the list. And if truly neither of us can figure it out, no two people, then at times, depending on kind of how the client has what they've laid out for their criteria of success or kind of how the whole system's going, occasionally we'll reach out and we'll let them know like, hey, based on the scope that you've given us, we're not seeing a ton of attack surface or we're not seeing this or that. Do you want us to expand? But that really depends on how many hours are allocated. So if I have 2 weeks and by day 3 I'm just seeing nothing because ostensibly they have 5 IPs and 2 services running, then we may reach back and kind of get an idea of what else we can do. Or if it's just a week and it's taken a week to kind of get to that point, then we just write up the report and then the client will hopefully be happy and with the results of us not getting anywhere, which sometimes clients are very happy about that.
Absolutely. Anybody got anything to add on that one?
Yeah, doing these assessments, I think Ari brought up an interesting point is, in the real world, right, doing assessments against customer environments, it's not a CTF, right? There's not going to always be a hole that leads you towards something. And as a pen tester, our goal is to, identify deficiencies, but then also highlight the positive security controls that may be in the environment. You're not always going to crack every environment that you look at. You're not going to hack, every system that you do an assessment for. So, I mean, sometimes the customer wins, right? But usually during the assessment or as you're looking at stuff, most of the time we get a sixth sense about something. We just feel like something looks a little odd. It doesn't seem to behave properly, or we just get an itch about it. I mean, if you go through stuff, you're looking at things and stuff isn't working. I mean, that's always a great opportunity to walk away, look at something else, and then come back later. I mean, a lot of the times, you get stuck in your own head looking at things for too long and getting up, walking away, having a beer, coming back, whatever. Just all of a sudden, like a light bulb goes on, and you're like, "Oh, I got it!" It happens all the time with me. As I'm in a car leaving the customer site, I was like, "Oh, I got it! Oh, no! I spent all day." And
It's always last minute.
yeah.
Pulls over to the side.
Well, yeah.
I got it.
After the customer asked me, "Please leave, please. I want to go home. I miss my children. Please leave."
You're holding them hostage. All right. Well, hey, I think that about wraps us up on time, guys. I want to thank everybody that submitted questions on Twitter. We appreciate it. Again, keep an eye out for who's going to win that giveaway. I want to thank our panelists today, Savannah, Matthew Birch, Matt Eidelberg, and Ari. I appreciate you guys. Thanks for coming on. To everybody out there watching, I hope you guys have an amazing Source ZeroCon. Make sure you get in the Discord, ask any questions that you have, and have just a great time. And we'll see you again next time, guys. Have a good day.
Bye.
Hi, I'm John Quadrino on the Attack and Pen team under Threat. I just want to say something I'm grateful for and I really enjoy on our team is just how open everybody is. When we come up with new TTPs or new tools, people want to show off, share their skills, and teach others.
Hi, my name is Savannah Lazera, and I'm on the Attack and Pen team under Threat Management at Opto. And I would say the things that I love the most about working on our team is the collaboration that we have with each other. We're constantly sharing new ideas with each other. We're constantly building out documentation for new attack chains. And I would say those are really big things to kind of help grow a team skill and make sure everyone's kind of at the same level.
Hi, my name is Zach Stein. I'm on the Attack and Pen team under Threat Management at Optiv. And my favorite part about working on this team is how we all work together with each other. Whether it be collaborating on an engagement or research new techniques, there's always someone there to A, have fun with, and B, learn new things from.
Hi, my name's Heather Hall. I'm on the Demand and Delivery team under Threat. The thing I love most about my team is how we are all equals. My peers are all willing to listen, help, and take on challenges right next to me.
Hey, I'm Ari with Optiv's Attack and Pen team. Why do I love working for the Attack and Pen team? Because it helps me win from within.
Hi, I'm John Quadrino on the Attack and Pen team under Threat. I just want to say something I'm grateful for and I really enjoy on our team is just how open everybody is. When we come up with new TTPs or new tools, people want to show off, share their skills, and teach others.
Hi, my name is Savannah Lazera, and I'm on the Attack and Pen team under Threat Management at Opto. And I would say the things that I love the most about working on our team is the collaboration that we have with each other. We're constantly sharing new ideas with each other. We're constantly building out documentation for new attack chains. And I would say those are really big things to kind of help grow a team skill and make sure everyone's kind of at the same level.
Hi, my name is Zach Stein. I'm on the Attack and Pen team under Threat Management at Optiv. And my favorite part about working on this team is how we all work together with each other. Whether it be collaborating on an engagement or research new techniques, there's always someone there to A, have fun with, and B, learn new things from.
Hi, my name's Heather Hall. I'm on the Demand and Delivery team under Threat. The thing I love most about my team is how we are all equals. My peers are all willing to listen, help, and take on challenges right next to me.
Hey, I'm Ari with Optiv's Attack and Pen team. Why do I love working for the Attack and Pen team? Because it helps me win from within.